Hello, everybody, and welcome to this webinar. In this session today, we are going to be talking about the Social Economy Action Plan in 2025, the EU progress, and Croatia's perspective. So I will be the moderator of this session. My name is Sarah de Hush. I'm Director of Social Economy Europe. Before we get started, a little bit of housekeeping. If you have any technical issue, we have somebody here, Pavel, who can help you during the session. And just put it in the chat. And then if you have any questions you would like to ask, please do not hesitate to put it in the chat as well that you can find on this slide. So in this session, we are going to be talking about the Social Economy Action Plan. It is a plan that has been adopted in 2021, and that is supposed to unravel until 2030. And this year is very special because it's the year of the midterm review and also the year in which the member states are supposed to provide recommendations about their national strategy for social economy, which is in line with the EC recommendations for developing frameworks for social economy. So the ecosystem of social economy is following up very closely on all these evolutions. We have been monitoring this also in gathering in Murcia in September for the European Summit on Social Economy. Last week, there was the GSEF, which is the Global Forum on Social Economy, where all actors and authorities from different levels could come together to talk about the situation of social economy, how to evolve, how to improve. In this session in particular, we're going to be learning more about the implementation of the Social Economy Action Plan in Europe at the European level, at the Commission level, from the Commission perspective, but also in a specific country, Croatia. For this discussion, for this panel, we have two great experts. We have, first of all, Emina Maria Gilic, who is specialist in services for financial instruments at the Ministry of Labor, Pension System, Family and Social Policy of Croatia. Welcome, Emina.
Hello, thank you.
And we also have Brigitte Fellahi-Brognaud, who is head of the European Commission unit in charge of social and inclusive entrepreneurship for DG Employment. Welcome, Brigitte.
Thank you, Sarah.
So, first of all, we are going to start our session with a poll, which I'm going to share right now. Here, you should all see on your screens the first question of our poll. We invite you to answer. So the question is, how is the Social Economy Action Plan evolving in your country? In your view, is it evolving very well? Is it in progress? Has it not started yet? You do not know. Or maybe the question is just simply not relevant in your country. So we are going to give you a few moments to answer this question. If you need some more explanation, very well, means that there's a clear progress and implementation. If you think that it's more, some steps have been taken, but more work is needed, you can write in progress. Well, of course, if it hasn't been started or visible, or the actions are not visible, of course, your answer is not started yet. And if your country is not in the European Union, maybe it's not relevant. I'll give you a few seconds more. Okay, it seems like everybody has answered. I do not see any more evolutions here. So the results is for most of the respondents, the action plan is in progress. Some do not know, and 13%, so 2 respondents think it's evolving very well, which is good news. Perfect. Now we can move on to the first question of our webinar, of our session. And so this question is for Brigitte. What have been the major evolutions over the last year within social economy fields at European Commission level?
Yeah, thanks, Sarah. And I mean, somehow comforted to see that at least things are moving in the countries, at least for people who who know about it. Maybe I would be slightly worried about the number of persons who do not know, but let's assume maybe some of them, as you say, might not be living in the EU. So coming back to the EU and at EU level, we have seen quite a number of changes actually since the adoption in 2021, as you said, also because the context has changed a lot. We have new political priorities, a new geopolitical context, as you also probably remember when not so long after the adoption, we had the COVID crisis, which was also an important moment for the social economy ecosystem. But with all of this now, I mean, after 4 years, beyond the fact that it's time for the midterm review, which was planned, we also think it's time to update our narrative for the new reality. And the midterm review, which we are preparing, will be the perfect opportunity to do that in consultation with many actors. It will be both past-looking, so taking stock of progress made, but also being forward-looking and announcing new actions at EU level. So to go a bit more concrete into your questions about what have we seen changing at EU level, we actually, beyond the adoption of the Council recommendation, which was a key milestone that you already mentioned, that's the first time we have a legal act in the EU for framing the framework conditions for social economy in the member states. We had quite a number of initiatives to help member states deliver on what we were asking them to work on. So we have put in place a capacity building project under TSI, which is the technical support instrument at EU level. And we're happy that 5 member states are working together now to help them do capacity building and exchanges to implement the Council recommendation. Also very important, I hope you saw, last week we published the result of the first Eurobarometer on social economy, which is a huge survey which was carried out across all member states and with rather very positive results actually in terms of awareness of the EU citizens on the social economy, and also a lot of interest, a lot of participation as volunteers or also as clients, as customers, and donors, I mean, all roles. And people really feel a lot about what the social economy can bring to our society. So that was very nice for us to see those results. And also we want to use them in the future as a kind of benchmark of that's where we stand, and hopefully it will even get better in the future. We also had a number of other actions that were announced in the action plan, like the Youth Entrepreneurship Policy Academy, actually, which we concluded. It was a 3-year project trying to devise good policy making for young entrepreneurs, and doing that by getting together the policymakers, the young entrepreneurs themselves, and also many support organizations. So we prepared a kind of, we call a legacy documents that will soon be available online with really pointers of what would be important to devise those policies. We have also run many mutual workshops for public officials to help them devise their strategy, discuss state aids, taxations. Soon we'll have one on data and statistics. So all these building blocks that we also see in the CEAP and in the Council recommendation, and which are very important to make sure we have the right conditions in the various member states. We also published a report on social economy labels to see how to map them, and then we'll see how we can make a better use of them. Some of these actions, including this report, are carried out with the OECD. We also launched several calls for proposals. One started already earlier this year, which was to pilot innovative schemes to bring more transparency and trust in the impact investing market. And a new one, which is still to be awarded, to support social economy networks. And soon, again, coming back to the OECD, we will publish the first flagship report on social economy, which we hope will bring some interesting light on some of the sectors as well. So those are, I mean, rapidly a few of the major developments that we have seen at EU level. But then, of course, implementation is key also in the member states. I think we'll have the opportunity to discuss next.
Thank you, Brigitte. This is a great transition for our next question, which is for Amina. And we would like to know, what does the social economy ecosystem look like in Croatia? Social economy enterprises, organization, microfinance institutions. Amina?
Thank you, Sarah. Thank you, Brigitte. In Croatia, the social economy is still in an early stage of development. We don't yet have a specific legal definition or law governing social enterprises, which makes it difficult to identify and support them systematically. Croatia had a strategy for the development of social entrepreneurship in 2015 to 20, which provided a useful starting point, but did not bring tangible results so far. Building on that experience, the new strategy for the development of social entrepreneurship will be prepared with the European Commission's Technical Support Instrument project that Brigitte already mentioned, and that is going to be implemented by the OECD. It should include clearer and simpler criteria for recognition of social entrepreneurs, unlike the previous 9 criteria that we had, and which were quite complex and I would say a bit discouraging for potential social entrepreneurs. Once that strategy is adopted, the Ministry of Labour, Pension System, Family and Social Policy plans to establish a register of social enterprises, which will finally give the social economy in Croatia visibility, coherence, and policy basis. In terms of financing, Croatia does not have an independent microfinance institution like France or Italy. However, microloans are available through Croatian Agency for Small Businesses, Innovations and Investments that we call Hamag Bicro, and the Croatian Bank for Construction Development that we call HABOR. Those instruments are financed from EU and from national resources. Also, you mentioned networks. There are networks such as ACT Group and CEDRA in Croatia. They also play an important role in connecting social entrepreneurs, providing mentoring and capacity building support, bridging the gap between national institutions and local initiatives. I'm sorry, I don't hear you, Sarah.
Yeah, sorry, I forgot 2025, and I can still forget to unmute myself. Sorry. So you mentioned it a little bit. You hear me? Oh, sorry.
You also oh yeah, yes, thanks.
Yeah. So you mentioned a bit how the ecosystem looked like. So you'd also start to talk about a few initiatives from the Croatian government. But what is the progress really? What progress have been made in terms of the implementation of the action plan in Croatia? In particular, the strategic plan, and also how does microfinance included really? Do they play a specific role? Which one is that?
Okay, thank you. Croatia is currently aligning with a social economy action plan through the technical support instrument that we mentioned, and which will provide a framework for a national definition of social economy, for criteria, for recognition, and recommendations for financing. This process will also contribute directly to implementing the Council recommendation on developing social economy frameworks, particularly by improving policy coordination, capacity building, and access to finance. The planned strategy for the development of social entrepreneurship will reflect the principles of that recommendation. It should focus on visibility, enabling conditions, and the role of social economy in inclusive growth. And you also asked me about microfinance, right? An important part of the TSI project is the design of a dedicated financial instrument that will be primarily for social enterprises, and that's going to be funded through ESF Plus. That is our major goal, to be able to continuously provide financial instruments to social entrepreneurs. The first financial instrument within the ESF Plus fund, microloan for growth and inclusion, was launched a few months ago. We already have one. It provides loans up to 25,000 euros for micro and small enterprises, including those operating within the social economy. And that actually marks an important step for integrating microfinance into national social economy policy. Up to now, Croatia has mainly relied on grant schemes under ESF Plus. I have to mention that they're very popular, obviously, because if they're implemented correctly, they do not need to be repaid. But in the long run, sustainability is crucial, both for policy design and for beneficiaries themselves. So we realize that relying solely on EU grants is very risky in the current geopolitical and fiscal context that you already mentioned. To conclude the question, social enterprises have the potential to generate profit, which is perfectly acceptable as long as it is reinvested in their social mission. And reinvestment principle is at the heart of social economy. So it is a key for building long-term sustainability and resilience.
Thank you, Emina. So in fact, you mentioned the TSI, the technical supports instrument from the Commission. There's also funding that also helps to develop the ecosystem. So now I'll come back to Brigitte, the Commission. Could you share key insights and main findings from the 2025 midterm review? I know it's not finalized yet, but we know that you're already well up on that project. What is the progress of the Social Economy Action Plan since 2024, for example, in improving frameworks conditions for social entities, so the recommendations as we call them? How is the implementation looking like in the different EU member states? Is microfinance included in any of these social economy strategies? How could the situation be improved? What's your view, Brigitte?
Well, yeah, as you just said, I mean, it's a bit early for the main findings, but we are certainly working on it. And maybe to give you a bit of time frame, so our plan is actually to adopt it by the end of February next year. So it's really coming soon now. And obviously to get there, we have already run a number of consultations of stakeholders. Like we had a big public call for evidence, we call it. So it's really the public consultation where anybody could contribute. But also we have carried out some more specialized and targeted consultations, notably with the GECES, which is our expert group we have in the Commission, representing both member states and stakeholders to advise us on whatever we do on social economy related. We have consulted civil society. We've had discussions also with the Social and Economic Committee, for example. And we are still carrying on some more targeted discussions. So all this input, and now we are really going through it on top of more, I would say, like a desk review, if I may say, information. Because, as I said, so there will be a backward-looking dimension. So we will take stock of the 63 actions that we had under the CEAP when it was adopted in 2021. And those were actually carried out in the Commission by many services. We have like 16 directorates general involved. So we are taking stock of progress. And the good news is that almost all actions that we had announced are either already completed or at least ongoing, because some of them are somehow like open-ended actions. So we cannot pretend that they are really completed, but they're still ongoing. For example, on our side directly, we created the Social Economy Gateway, which is a very important source of information for all stakeholders. And yeah, it's there, but we cannot say it's completed because we keep on improving it also with the help of stakeholders. So this is the kind of work we are doing. And on your question, really on the member state level. So indeed, when we adopted the Council recommendation, member states, we recommended them to, within 2 years, so within 2 years is right now in November 2025, to adopt or adapt a strategy for social economy, either as a dedicated one or maybe in relation to a broader one that could be linked, for example, to entrepreneurship in some countries. So there again, it's a bit early to tell you because as in the case of Croatia, that was just mentioned, many member states are still working on it, notably with the help of this TSI project. Some of them are working on it directly on their own. But we haven't seen yet the revised strategy. Regarding microfinance, access to finance, more generally speaking, was obviously one of the building blocks, which was flagged as being very important and to be addressed if we want to have right framework conditions for our social economy entities. Because, I mean, as usually we see that's one of the first bottlenecks and barriers, which is always mentioned. Access to finance is always a problem, whether you're an association or a cooperative or a social enterprise. So obviously that's very important, and there the role of microfinance is essential as well. We are talking about these small loans, as Emina just said, but essential for people, especially those who don't have access to the banking sector, to be able to start their own business. And that's mostly what we do, and we support this through the InvestEU program mostly. but also through the European Social Finance Fund. There, I mean, I'm delighted to hear that in Croatia they will set up a financial instrument for microfinance under the ESF. That's really something we think is important, because social economy, it's also a business model, and somehow there's no reason to just support it through grants. Grants are important. Notably, we see it in microfinance to blend, to support the business development services that accompany the entrepreneurs in their starts. It's important to get support, and it's costly. But I mean, at the end of the day, it's still a business, so the loan model makes much more sense. People need help to get started, but then once they get their revenues, they can pay back. And also it's more effective in terms of public finances, because you have this revolving effect. So once somebody has paid back his loan, you reuse the money to help another entrepreneur, which is not the case with a grant, obviously. So it's very nice to see that some member states are picking up on these schemes. Then in terms of still some feedback, so through the call for evidence, we got actually a nice number of answers. So we can consider that we had a rather wide coverage. And on access to finance, we had many comments, as we could expect, because as I said, it's always the first bottleneck that is mentioned by everybody. And there we got very precise recommendations, actually, for making changes, notably to the InvestEU program, which is this program where we manage the guarantee that we give to some implementing partners in the area of microfinance. It's mostly either the EIF, the European Investment Fund, or the CEB, which is the Bank of the Council of Europe. And those are then, we give them a guarantee so they can support microfinance institutions, notably, but also ethical banks, for example, in the field of more social entrepreneurship. And so they can, I would say, take more risks than they could do if we were not supporting them. But then, so we got some ideas and suggestions that we still should go for a smaller deal. We should have a higher coverage of the guarantee. We should maybe expand the type of beneficiaries, intermediaries that we cover. Some ideas for innovative financial setups that we'll certainly look into. The idea of blending keeps coming. So the idea that it's good to have loans or guarantees when you're a business. But as I just said, typically in the case of microfinance, the accompanying services are very expensive. So combining the financial instrument with a grant is also very important. Yeah, I think also maybe even when it was not mentioned, I think it's important to keep the broad spectrum of support in mind, as we already mentioned. So not just InvestEU, which is managed by us directly at EU level, but also all these funds under the ESF at national level, the TSI. And centrally, we also launched some call for proposals, which are held to help the creation of new funds in member states where it's less developed, for example. So we really try to support the ecosystem to make sure that across all member states we have this kind of support available. So I hope this answers more or less your question on what I can say at this stage, and more is to come soon. Just be a bit patient.
Yes, thank you. And so it's interesting also to have this type of information on the funding mechanism, investment mechanism right now when the negotiations on the multi-financial framework are going on. It can give some inputs, so it's good to have that. I'll go back to Amina now. What specific challenges and successes have Croatian managing authorities experienced in supporting social economy at the national and subnational level?
Well, as I already mentioned, one success was the adoption of the strategy 2015-2020, which actually raised awareness and created the first policy framework. However, its implementation did not result in real growth of the sector. So main challenges today include lack of the legal framework and register, which prevents systematic support to social economy, fragmenting funding, which with most support based on the project cycles rather than the long-term programs. And then there is no specific tax treatment or incentives for social enterprises. There is limited experience in measuring social impact, which makes it harder to justify investments. So through this ongoing TSI project that we are constantly mentioning, we are actually addressing these issues. We hope that a new strategy will define clear criteria, set the basis for the register, and propose a financial instruments for primarily social enterprises.
Thank you. Well, you've already started to answer a little bit the next question, but maybe there's something more that you think that Croatia would need to further support social economy ecosystem.
To move forward, Croatia needs actually several key elements. We primarily need a legal framework and a register of social enterprises to ensure formal recognition, visibility, and eligibility for public support. Then we need a more balanced and sustainable financial support system, the one that should be combining grants for early stage initiatives with financial instruments. As actually Brigitte was mentioning, that combination of grants and financial instruments, we believe is a long-term winning model. We believe that microloans, guarantees, and in longer terms, equities are the solution. So all types of financial instruments, which could help attract private investments and strengthen long-term sustainability, reducing reliance primarily on EU grants. And as I already mentioned, taxes are also very important. Tax incentives for social enterprises would also be a good push for social entrepreneurs. Croatia currently has no special tax treatment, introducing target tax benefits. For example, reinvested profits could significantly encourage social entrepreneurship. And also stable support for networks and intermediaries that would provide essential capacity buildings and link social entrepreneurs with funding opportunities would also be a good step. So this combination of clear legal base, diverse financial tools, supportive tax policy, and strong intermediaries, that is essential to build a resilient and visible social economy that can grow beyond the project-based model and actually have a long-term sustainability.
Thank you, Amina. Indeed, so you mentioned some key elements like financial legislation, taxation, a lot of things that are happening discussions that are happening at the European level right now. But now, Brigitte, maybe going back to you, because all these legislations are often calling, especially the funding and the investment, are for impact measurement, right? So how important is the impact measurement from the point of view of the European Commission and all these debates? Brigitte, what would be the consequences if the social economy actors, including microfinance institution, would not provide such data, or and of good quality, of course?
Yeah, I mean, impact management and measurement first and management is essential. It's essential for us. It's essential for the social economy entities. I think it's also essential for policymakers and funders at national level. You know, I mean, I mentioned at the beginning that the environment has changed, the narrative has changed. Now we hear a lot about the need for the EU to be competitive. And in that frame, I mean, for us, I mean, we strongly believe that competitiveness is not possible without people. And that's where social economy has a key role to play, and microfinance as well. Because beyond the financial returns and monitoring, we're talking about financial instruments, we're talking about loans. But microfinance is not just about small loans. It's really about helping vulnerable people and helping through them also the communities, and so that through entrepreneurship you can get a more cohesive and inclusive society, and bring back people to work. So obviously indicators like job supported and created is essential to demonstrate the added value of microfinance. And beyond that, more difficult to measure, but also it's giving back people their dignity and their real presence in and their role in the society. So all of this makes for us, I mean, it's obvious that impact measurement is really essential. Now, it's not an easy task. We see a lot of discussions now, a lot of awareness on the fact that we need to be able to demonstrate the added value of what we do. It's essential also, I mean, at a time when we see that public financings are stretched. So there is competition as well. I mean, we should not hide away from that for this public finance. Hence, I think the importance of stressing that financial instruments are a very effective tool. But also beyond that, we still need to demonstrate that it's really a key way to support our growth in terms of economy, but also in terms of inclusive society. For us as DG Employment, of course, I mean, we see direct contribution and link to many of the policy initiatives and frames we have put in place. Helping vulnerable people, I mean, is also a way to, it directly fits into the European Pillar of Social Rights, which is for us a frame for all policies, but also more directly with some upcoming initiatives that we will table next year. Clear link to the anti-poverty strategy, for example. Clear link also to the jobs quality roadmap. It's important to bring back people into the formal economy, making them entrepreneurs, giving them a job. So all this, I mean, it's really essential to the European social model, we believe. But to get there, yeah, we still have some work to do. Many microfinance intermediaries, they are working on developing a framework with some key performance indicators to be able to monitor and to report on their value beyond the financial returns, because the social returns are essential. It's still a bit fragmented through the advisory hub of the InvestEU. We are working on it, as I mentioned, with our two implementing partners, the CEB and the EIF. The CEB just released actually a toolkit to help MFIs develop their social impact measurement. And we intend to carry on that direction because it's very important to do it at entity level, but also a more aggregated level, so that we can really, as also Emina said, it's important to demonstrate to everybody that it's really a sector and a model that is worth investing in. So we'll keep on working on it.
Thank you very much. Yes, indeed, the evaluating the tangible and intangible is complicated, but it's indeed important for the instrument to design adapted and financial instruments. So we're going to go to this part now, and we're going to start this second part with a poll. So we have a question normally that should be showing up soon on your screen. I do not see it yet, but I suppose normally it should arrive swiftly. So I can already start it so you can start thinking about it. So what type of financial instruments do you find most useful? Here we go. So the first option is grants. The second one is loans. The third one is equity and quasi-equity investment. Other ones are other forms of repayable funding, such as revenue share agreements or hybrid capital, or maybe you just don't know, and it's possible. So we're going to let you a few seconds to answer this while the sun is playing with me. Here in Belgium, it's rare to have such a sun in November. And also, I'm not taking the opportunity of you answering the poll to remind you that if you have any questions for our speakers, do not hesitate to put it in the chat. We can take it on at the end. And if we'll give it another few seconds. I don't know, I'm backstage if we can already show the answers or if there's still people are still answering. Ah, here we go. So in the first position, we see that the most useful ones are considered to be the loans. Then secondly, a lot of people don't know which is the best instruments, financial instruments. And then in second position, therefore, we have grants. And then we have other forms of repayable funding. And then only in the last position, we have equity or quasi-equity investment. We thank you all for answering this. And so I guess now I've closed this poll and we can move on to the next set of questions. So now the question to me would be, I have an issue here. Sorry, my document will not appear and therefore I have a... So Emina, what financial instruments would you like to put forward and for which entities are offered in Croatia? Could you explain a bit more?
Well, at the national level, social economy entities can access several financial instruments. The one that I already mentioned, ESF plus microloan for growth and inclusion. It's a 30 million euros fund providing up to 25,000 euros per loan for micro and small enterprises, including those operating with social impact. That one is managed by Hamak Bikra with favorable conditions and the partial write-offs linked to job creation for vulnerable groups. Then there is Haber loan programs for growth and development and Hamak Bikra guarantees. They are available to all SMEs, not specifically for social enterprises. Also, there are instruments under the National Recovery and Resilience Plan offering additional loans and guarantees for green and digital transition. And there is support, as Brigitte already mentioned, through the European Investment Bank and the European Investment Fund guarantee schemes, which actually indirectly benefit social enterprises by improving their access to credit and reducing lending risk for financial intermediaries. However, what is still missing is a dedicated financial instrument designed specifically for social economy entities, and that is what we actually plan to deliver within next few years through the ESF fund. And I have to say that I'm positively surprised that quite a lot of people voted for loans in this poll, and that there's at least one person that voted for equity. That really surprised me positively. Thank you.
So, Brigitte, could you tell us, we've been mentioning a bit already in the past questions, but the multi-financial framework, how will this new one impact the social economy ecosystem over the next years? And what does it mean for social economy ecosystem, these new changes? And maybe perhaps you could also explain what improvement have been made and what will happen with the ESF Plus and what can be expected from the InvestEU. You mentioned it a little bit, but maybe you can go a bit further. For the social economy ecosystem in the new MFF that is being negotiated right now.
Okay, you keep asking me premature questions, so I'll tell you what I can say at this stage. As some of you at least may know, we are at the stage where the Commission made proposals. So for this next multi-annual financial framework, the MFF as we call it, the next one will run from 2028 to 2034. And we already made the proposal because now what will happen is that the Commission adopted this proposal and transmitted them to the legislator. So the Parliament on the one hand and the Council on the other hand. And now both Parliament and Council are examining our proposals, discussing them. I mean, usually this kind of process takes 2 years. That's the European time. It's a slow time. And during those 2 years, of course, some changes will be made to the proposals. So that's why also, I mean, it's important to say that what I will say now is based on the Commission proposal. It's not the final state of play because nobody knows the final state of play at this stage. We'll discover that along the 2 years to come. Maybe to try to explain in a nutshell, the framework will look very different from what it is today. So first, I mean, be prepared to change a bit your references because we have been looking for a more efficient MFF, so more focused, more performance-oriented, and more agile as well to be able to follow the emerging priorities we've seen during this MFF, so running from 21 to 27. When it was prepared in 2019, because again, it was 2 years in advance, it was before COVID, it was before the war in Ukraine, it was before many things. So we have been under pressure to reprioritize, redeploy, reshuffle along the years. And it's not, I mean, this MFF, actually, it's a big, it's like a big boat. So it's difficult to change direction and to steer it very at short notice. So what we are trying to do in the next one is to have a bit more flexibility for this kind of adaptation to emerging priorities. And one of the ways of doing that is that from all the many programs we have today, we have made, I would say, three main parts, let's call them. One is for external actions, so the non-EU member states. One is for what is currently called, let's say, the cohesion policy in an extended way. So that's why we have the ESF, the ERDF, so Regional Development Fund, but also the Fisheries Fund, the Agricultural Fund, the Home Funds for the migrants. So this has become a big pot, which in the future will be called the National and Regional Partnership Plans. And the idea being to have one plan per member state covering all these topics with priorities identified at a national level, also including the regional level. And then the third big part will be what we call the competitiveness one, where you will have notably the new competitiveness fund and also Horizon Europe, which remains as a separate program. And then you have a few other programs on the side, which are not, I mean, marginal, because, for example, you still have Erasmus, which is a big program, well known to everybody. But if I come back to the two parts, the one, let's say, for shared management, cohesion policies, the NRPPs, and the European competitiveness, the ECF. So that's the two most relevant ones, actually, for social economy entities. If I start with NRPPs, so that's where that will be the home for the future European Social Fund, which remains, but will be implemented under these NRPPs. So, and there, under the NRPPs and the ESF regulation, because there is a separate regulation which has been tabled, you will actually see a lot of continuity on the objectives of this fund in terms of what we do today with the ESF. So typically, we will carry on pursuing objectives in relation to good quality employment, to social inclusion, to fighting poverty, to having also on our side, developing the social finance ecosystem. So there's really a lot of continuity in terms of the objectives. And under the ESF in particular, have been flagged the idea of we should work on social inclusion, food and basic material assistance, addressing child poverty, combating youth unemployment. So there, if I may say, the architecture, the setup is different, but in terms of policy objectives, it's very similar. What is also new is that actually those policy objectives, you find them somehow under the European Competitiveness Fund as well, where one of the main objectives is to support SMEs, including microfinance and social enterprises. So it's flagged there directly. And as part of the infrastructure needed for the competitiveness of Europe, social infrastructure are flagged as well. So why is it important? Because I mentioned in my previous intervention that in terms of funding for social economy entities, we have two important blocks, which are the ESF, managed by the member states, and the InvestEU. InvestEU as such disappears. You don't see it in the next MFF in the titles of the programs, but under the Competitiveness Fund, there is what is called an ECF, InvestEU guarantee. So the mechanism that we have today in InvestEU will be recreated under the ECF, the Competitiveness Fund. And as far as social objectives are concerned, actually we will transfer money from the NRPPs, so the national plans, especially the part which is called the EU facility inside. We'll transfer money to the ECF guarantee to somehow reconstitute the equivalent of the social investment and skills windows that we have today. So it seems a bit complex, sorry, and the architecture really looks different, so it's probably a bit puzzling to many people. But in terms of tools, objective pursued, and what will be for us the range of instruments that we can put at disposal of the social economy entities, it's not so different. It's more for maybe on our side that the mechanics will change a bit. But on the other side, you will find again the grants, the loans, the equity, the guarantees. You will find them at national level on shared management, so typically through ESF type of support. You will find them at EU level, like we do today under the InvestEU, and maybe also some grants that we will carry on doing at EU level. So at the end of the day, it's not so different, I would say, for the stakeholders on the ground. Hopefully a bit easier to access. So that's also the idea of merging all these programs that were a bit scattered. And Emina mentioned earlier that the fragmented landscape for funding was a problem. So hopefully it will be a bit less fragmented. It will be also hopefully more focused really on the priorities. And one important change will be, especially for shared management, that we are moving more towards performance-based management. So typically for social economy, where there are some indicators which are pre-identified. We were talking about impact measurement before. Directly, there will be this idea that social economy, social finance will have as KPIs the number of jobs created and supported, for example. So we want to reinforce its link really to make the best use of the money we have in the EU budget. I hope it's not too confused.
Well, there's a lot of changes in the architecture and in the management of it. So yeah, we still have to figure out how it's going to happen on the ground. There's a lot of analysis circulating. We're participating also in a few coalition to analyze what we think it would mean for social economy on the ground as the negotiations are now, of course. But perhaps before we give the floor to question and answer, one last question for Emina. What are the plans for the social economy's future in Croatia, in your view? What's coming up in Croatia?
So we are also at the beginning of two-year project. By 2027, Croatia aims to adopt a new strategy for the development of social entrepreneurship as the basis. We also plan to establish the register of social enterprises and launch a dedicated ESF Plus financial instrument designed specifically for social economy actors. The broader vision is to move from project-based to sustainable models of operation where social enterprises can access different forms of finance, attract private investment, and grow independently of short-term grants that we have been mentioning today quite a lot. In the coming years, it will also be important to develop a supportive tax framework for social enterprises. For instance, by introducing tax incentives for reinvested profits or other social impact related benefits. This would not only encourage responsible business models, but it would also make the social economy more competitive. Our long-term goal is a resilient and financially sustainable ecosystem, one that combines clear regulation, accessible financing, fair taxation, and it should be enabling social enterprises to contribute fully to Croatia's economic and social development.
Thank you, Emina. And indeed, here we're in the microfinance. It's a conference organized in microfinance. There's a lot of focus on the entrepreneurship, and it's very important because it's an important aspect of social economy. And but there's also organizations out there, so we should not get that in the EU funding and support to organizations. So now is a moment for questions and answers. Unless I am mistaken, I haven't seen anybody. Everybody's been really shy. But maybe you have I can launch two things while the first person gets out of the shyness and launches the question. It can be in the chat, and of course I will mention it. So first of all, before I forget, I know that Emina, you wanted to share a poll with us. A questionnaire for research that you're doing. Maybe you can share it here. But before you do that, I have a question for you. Given all this conversation, what would be your advice to the European Commission actually as to priorities to focus on for the implementation of the social economy action plan on the one side, and maybe also more specifically for the Central and Eastern European countries?
I would highlight actually 3 key lessons that I think we have learned so far in Croatia. First one is to start simple. Make criteria and definitions clear and accessible, because overly complex frameworks discourage participation. So simplicity is a key for the beginning. Then the important thing is to balance grants with repayable finance. As we already stated, grants are important for early stages, but microloans and guarantees are essential for long-term sustainability. And the third thing would be to invest in intermediaries and into networks, because they're the bridge between public policy and social entrepreneurs. And actually, if I can stress one key word that I keep repeating today, that would be sustainability. So I think that's very important. And as you mentioned, actually, once we finish, I would ask participants if they have a few minutes after the session. I would appreciate if they would complete the survey, and actually the link, I would put it in the chat. So if you have time, please open or copy the link from chat and complete after session. Thank you so much. That would be useful for my research within my dissertation thesis.
With pleasure. And Brigitte, what would you, because I know that you have a lot of echoes from the ecosystem, which is worried with the situation going on for the social economy, ecosystem in general, the MFF, what would be your key messages to the ecosystem in terms of appeasing maybe some fears, but also maybe to encourage in doing specific action?
Well, I think it's always good to put a bit of perspective in what we are doing, and maybe look a little bit more long term, both backward and forward, because indeed, I mean, there is a feeling that there are some headwinds against the social economy ecosystem these days. And I mean, to some extent, it's true. I mean, just like we should not shy away from that. But I mean, again, if you look back at what was just discussed, progress made since 2021, actually, we see a lot of progress, not just at EU level, but more importantly, on the ground in the member states at local level. So this is, I mean, a very important message for me in terms of recognition of the value of this model and of all the people who are contributing. I mean, you often quote this figure that that says that we have like 11 million people working in the social economy entities. I mean, it's not marginal, it's very important. And beyond the economic and financial value, we were just discussing social impact. I mean, it's really key for me for the impact on the society. And that is a very important message, which I think we must cherish and just carry on, because, I mean, we have seen progress. We need to continue doing progress, maybe in a more difficult environment. But I mean, social economy proved its resilience during COVID in terms of difficult context. I mean, it was a very difficult context. So if we did it once, we can do it again. And I think it's important, but for that, it's important that we don't come just with the values. I mean, the values are essential, but you also need to demonstrate that you have value for the society. And that's where maybe I come back also to the discussion on impact measurements. It's very important to demonstrate that it's a sector or model, because it's not a sector, it's across all the economy, contributes to all these really important policies that we are pursuing, from the green transition, you mentioned the digital, but also care. We are in an aging society, it's essential. So everywhere, I mean, we see social economy actors really playing a very important role. And so it's important to be able to really demonstrate the importance of what is delivered, and that from a also purely monetary point of view, that it's money well invested. It's an investment. It's not an expenditure. It's largely, especially we are talking about microfinance and entrepreneurship, it's an investment in our society. So I would really encourage everybody to carry on, talk to your people around you, talk to your managing authorities to convince them, like in Croatia, to put in place financial instruments to help you. Talk to your national policymakers. It's important to pass the message and pass it with really evidence to support the good policy making.
Yes, indeed. You mentioned it. There's the barometer is also a very positive result because it really shows how much social economy is embedded in our societies and people value it. You mentioned the number of employees. If we think of also the number of people who are members of cooperative or organizations, we even go up to 250 million. So affiliations. So that's that shows that really the power of the social economy and how it's embedded in society. And we know on our hand in the ecosystem that we have to raise a bit visibility because often people feel more identified to certain aspects of social economy, and to make and understood that social economy is a wider movement is important, especially because across Europe we have different visions, different approaches, different cultures, and but it is indeed an economy that not only has proven impact in economic terms, as you mentioned, Brigitte, but also in societal and intangible added value that we really need now more than ever. So if anybody has a question, we only have 2 minutes left. And I don't see any more questions. I don't know if Emina and Brigitte, you have a question for each other. You never know, or a last piece of advice or of a suggestion, because every level counts, is that what we always say, social economy Europe, from the commission to the national, the regional, and the local. You need, Emina.
I can only say that it was a real pleasure to participate in this panel with all of you, and thank you very much.
Thank you.
Wish us all
Emina.
the best in everything we've said so far.
Yes, a lot of work still.
A lot of work still. Same on my side. I mean, really nice discussion and exchange, and it's always interesting for us to deep more into what's happening in the member states. We'll be taking stock very soon, but I mean, really understanding better what's happening, and I mean, hearing you again about the challenges, how you see the way forward. It's very nice to see how things are evolving, and they're evolving in the right direction. Coming back to your previous question, so I think it's a very positive message. And I can only encourage all member states to follow.
Well, thank you, Emina and Brigitte, for this great conversation.